Hi, I'm John Mayfield, your 2022 Missouri Realtors President, and I'm with Andrea Sheridan, our President-elect for 2022, and John Seabree, our CEO. Thank you so much for joining me. We've got some great information we want to share with you as your leadership role for 2022 with Missouri Realtors. Now, we are coming off a great leadership orientation program we had in Cape Girardeau. Many of you may have been there either live or virtually, and thank you for attending. If you were not there, that's okay. We want to go over a few items that we believe will help you in the coming year with your leadership role. But first, I just want to ask Andrea and John, what'd you think about our leadership orientation and our story theme in Cape Girardeau?
So going along with your theme for 2022, which is Tell Your Story, I was super impressed with our speaker who really talked to us about how storytelling allows us to have impact with the people that we are trying to persuade and or sell to. It was fantastic. If we have the video of that, so you can go back and watch that.
We will make sure everybody has that link.
Yeah.
And following along that same line, we didn't just have her help us write our stories on issues that a local board president may face or a committee chair may face. We actually had her help us craft messages that will be very beneficial for our advocacy agenda in 2022. Really getting a handle on the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act as an example, and giving us really objective advice from an outsider to what may help us tell that story.
Great points. My theme, as Andrea and John both shared with you, is it's your story. And to me, we're all telling stories. I've been a realtor for many, many years. Most of you know that. And I tell stories about why I'm involved with Missouri Realtors. I have stories about why I give to RPAC. I have stories about why consumers should deal with a realtor. So we want you to think about it's your story and sharing your story in 2022. But let's get to some important information for you. And one of the items that I think has been so beneficial for Missouri Realtors is the landing. And so Andrea is going to share with you as chairs and vice chairs how you can take part and use the landing to further your goals as chairs and vice chairs of your groups.
Yeah, definitely. The landing gets to be your resource for the conversation before the conversation. So instead of it just being while we're at the meeting and hashing everything out then, we can start that conversation even before we get to our January meetings, where you're posting some questions, posting the agenda in the landing. All of your documents will be there. So instead of trying to search through your email and find, where are the minutes, where's the agenda, you can go to the landing, search your communities, and have all of that right at your fingertips. Really great way to connect with the members of your committee in a way that you're not emailing them all individually. It's all in one central place, and then everybody can join in that conversation and be able to be ready for our actual business conferences.
Excellent points. And John, tell the group too, the landing gets updated as they are assigned positions and committees, so they'll be able to go and basically find all of their groups that they're members of.
Yes, everyone who's been appointed to a 2022 committee is in their landing community. And then as people attend output groups, obviously one of the most unique things about our committee structure, our O2 structure, is that, as I've said so many times, it's not a popularity contest. You don't have to wait to get appointed. If you have an interest in something that's happening, go to that output group and you put yourself there. So just by showing up, signing the attendance sheet, or if you join virtually, we capture who's joining virtually, we automatically put you into that output group list of members just for showing up. So then you're there to participate in all those conversations for the future.
Great.
And those are archived also, so you could go back through past meetings and get an idea of where you've been historically, and will help you lead forward.
Wonderful.
And I think that's an important point, because so oftentimes, maybe someone's a new vice chair this year and they were appointed vice chair, but maybe they hadn't attended many meetings of that particular output group or committee in the past. They can see, as you said, what has been happening. Go back and read the minutes, understand the types of speakers that output group or committee tends to have and the topics that they are charged with pursuing.
Yeah.
And share information. As you see articles or content that you think would be beneficial for your output group or your committee, that's a great place for you to share that information. We will want to go over a few things for you regarding meetings and being a chairperson. And listen, we're not here. We know all of you are going to do a great job. We wouldn't have chosen you if we hadn't put the faith in you that we have. But it's always, I think, a great idea to go over some of the good characteristics on leading a meeting and being a good chairperson. So a good characteristic is to speak clearly. And here's another tip I've found as a speaker. Sometimes people will ask a question. I think it's always good to repeat that question. First of all, acknowledge them, thank them for the question, and then repeat it so everyone in the room can hear the question. I know you do a lot of teaching as well, and sometimes we take for granted that everybody can hear someone, but they sometimes cannot.
Especially in our hybrid format, that's definitely helpful so that people online can hear what's happening in person.
Yes, exactly. Second point to remember is to be sensitive to the feelings of the members on the committee. That's why it's always good, I think, to tell people, thank you for your question, that's a great question, and then let them provide the question, allow for impartial and objective communication among the other members there.
And you know, as I've pointed out many times in the past, I think our association membership is so unique because many of them had prior careers to becoming a realtor. And you know, something someone says may seem out of left field to me, but they're in the communications output group and they used to write for a newspaper or they were a news anchor and they come from a different perspective and they have a really great idea that we would not have thought of. So that's the beauty of our ability to just share stories. And
really is. I think it's always good to start and finish your meetings on time. Sometimes we want to wait for everybody to get in the room, but those people who have gotten there early or who are there on time, they want you to start on time. And I think we need to be respectable of their time and to always start the meeting and finish on time if you could. Andrea, how about a couple of other points there?
Yeah, so in your packet that we'll be sending you, we have the chair, vice chair, and staff liaison checklist, but we also have a list of all of these amazing characteristics of good chair people. And a lot of that surrounds how we ask for people's input, and we recognize their value to being in our committee or our output group, because all the different ideas come together to help us make this beautiful blend of consensus and new ideas and innovation. So definitely encourage everybody, especially everybody at the table, to have a voice and be willing to share their ideas.
John, what are some things you've seen among committees and chairpersons? You've served a lot on the national level and in different organizations that you've appreciated.
You had talked about the objectivity. When someone becomes a chair or vice chair, they have to remember, you know, they need to listen to everything that's coming out and not, I'm the chairman and I feel this way, because that tends to send people down the wrong track. So being open and just following those great suggestions that you had, but also making every member in that output group or committee feel valued, because we really do value this is volunteer time they are spending on behalf of their colleagues across the state, and we value that.
Now, we want you to also be approachable, be tactful. All of these, we're going to have information in your notes that you can take a look at through this email. I think it's very good too. I know when I first served as a vice chair many years ago, I appreciated the fact that I was given some responsibilities in that meeting. So make sure that as a chair that you're bringing that vice chair in to lead part of the meeting and do some different parts of the meeting. I think that's always good. So be able to delegate, very good to do that as well.
And you know, also very importantly, everything that you do, make sure it refers back to the strategic plan. We've done a really good job of taking a 19-page strategic plan and turning it into a one-page strategic framework. And, you know, we all have great ideas, and they could be great ideas that belong with another organization you're a part of versus your realtor committee if they don't fit into the strategic plan. So just keeping that at
I
top
think
of
that
mind.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because we really need to be focused that what we're doing in those meetings needs to align with our strategic plan. I did
Well, and you've
want-
got two filter questions, basically. So on your nameplate, on the back of it has the mission of the committee or the output group, and then you have your placemat of that strategic plan. So you have basically two filter mechanisms for the ideas that come through. So you're not shooting down ideas, you're just figuring out, does this fit within the framework of what we're tasked to do as our committee?
Right. And there may be another output group that it fits in if it doesn't fit in the one we're in at the moment.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to tell someone if something gets the meeting off course, to say, that's a great question, and maybe that's something we could take up in the hall or after. If it's off point or kind of takes the meeting in the wrong direction, don't be afraid to do that. Now, we do want to remind everyone, we're doing blended meetings now, so we will have people joining virtually, and we have some great technology. John, I'm going to let you tell them about our friend, the owl, but some important points they need to remember as they're leading the meeting regarding the owl.
I mean, it's wonderful to have technology that makes it possible for all of us to be together. And of course, we got really, really good at virtual meetings when we were 100% virtual. And then once we started getting back into meeting partially in person and partially, it makes it a little tougher on us, but we do have the owl that we try to set up in every output group. We try to have at least two of them in every committee. The owl follows the person in the room who's speaking. Unfortunately, we can't have separate speakers with the owl, so it can be a little tough to hear, but we try to set the meetings up so that everyone can participate. Our bigger meetings, so the opening session, the emerging issues forum, those are streamed directly, so there's a little less interaction if you're joining virtually. But in output groups and committees, we want it to be a fairly seamless process so that it's as if you're in the room and you can raise your hand and speak just like anyone else.
So be sure and encourage everyone to speak toward the owl, and remember, you will have some people who may be joining virtually, and that's always good to recognize those folks that are joining virtually. And what about having meetings before the regular conferences?
Yeah, so that can happen with conversations via the landing, and just because we're not in a business conference doesn't mean the conversation has to end. You can definitely put together Zoom phone calls, video calls, you can have conversations on the landing. And one of the things I think as chair that I don't know we talk about really often is that you almost have to be tactfully forceful when you have a big group of people and you're trying to manage the online conversations and the in-person conversations. So definitely lean on your Robert's Rules of Order, know what those look like, but also allow the structure of the committee with Robert Rules of Order to allow everybody to speak. Recognize the hands that are raised. Sometimes you'll have to keep a little note of who's next in line as far as people who have raised their hands, so everybody feels like they have an opportunity to speak, but not having everybody just jumping in on each other.
John, you have some great points on leadership success and some topics you love to talk about. Why don't you share a few of those pathways to 2022 success?
For example, when we were in Cape Girardeau, I staffed 3 different committees, so it was hard for me to spend really quality time in the short breakout time we had with each of my chairs, vice chairs, and so I promised them we would follow up afterwards. So in the packet, the checklist that is included in your note that you receive with this video that Andrea has already mentioned, running through that checklist, maybe setting a time sometime over the next month between the chair, vice chair, and the staff liaison to just run through this checklist of things. Make sure that the 3 of you are on the same page with the purpose. Maybe you've never read it before and you didn't realize what you just agreed to be part of for the year. But the purpose of the meeting, the relevance of your specific area to the strategic plan, which we've already talked about. We have a huge focus on diversity and inclusion. We've actually changed our strategic plan just in the last few months to include more fair housing and diversity and inclusion elements. But we encourage everyone in their output group and their mission committee to think about not just the typical ways that we're diverse, but other things. If you're in the commercial output group, think about whether we're talking about just big cities and not rural areas of the state, and the diversity of the state in that way. And always think about maybe who's missing from the conversation, because it makes all of our conversations stronger if we're inclusive and thinking about that incredible diversity that makes Missouri wonderful.
Excellent. Well, we are going to have a wonderful 2022. We have our Winter Business Conference in St. Louis. It's at the Hyatt downtown. We have our Spring Business Conference in Jefferson City, so we want you to be sure and take part of that. And then our Fall Business Conference will be in Chesterfield, Missouri. We also have Realtor Days that we will encourage you to be a part of and support, and remind those in your committee groups about giving to RPAC, giving to our Relief Foundation. We want to continue to give to that in 2022. So we have some great things that we're going to do in 2022. I'm so honored to be your president for the coming year. I'm privileged and honored to have Andrea alongside, and John as our CEO, and all of our staff at Missouri Realtors. But we want you to have a great year as committee chairs and vice chairs. You really set the tone for the meetings, because running a successful meeting, following the information we've included with this email, can absolutely give an experience to those first-time attendees and some of the veterans that they'll remember for many, many years. So, Andrea, John, thank you so much.
Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or want to dive deeper into what your mission is for 2022.
Exactly. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching the video. We'll see you in St. Louis.